Hello everyone and welcome back to another video where today I want to cover one of the most insane leaks I've ever seen come out of Doctor Who, and this one has been doing the rounds a little bit on Reddit and across social media and stuff like that. So potential spoilers ahead, but also potentially not, like with all of these Reddit kind of leaks. You do need to take them with a grain of salt. However, I will say the stuff that I'm about to read does have a source that's gotten things right in the past. So bear that in mind. If this is not something for you, then I would suggest clicking off. But chances are, if this is accurate, you're going to see this start to be reported on a lot more because it's absolutely insane. But subscribe if you're new, that would be greatly appreciated. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, maybe by the end of the series if we can. I don't know whether we can do it, but we're going to try. So any support would be greatly appreciated on that front. But with that said, let's get right into it. So this is a follow-up to my previous video stating that according to Reddit leaks, the 16th Doctor will apparently be female and familiar. According to another leaker, who may or may not be the infamous Andrew, it turns out 15's open-ended regeneration may not be as open-ended as we thought it was going to be, and the 16th Doctor has apparently been cast, according to Andrew, she is female and familiar. So my immediate question reading this in my previous video was, who is Andrew? What's this guy's deal? Well, according to a follow-up leak, talking a bit more in depth about this, according to Andrew, the notorious Season 2 leaker who has gotten everything correct, including Episode 3 being a midnight sequel and the Fugitive Doctor appearing in Episode 5, the 16th Doctor has been cast and will be played by a familiar actor who has appeared in the show before. So as I say here, it's notable that, according to this at least, Andrew was the one that leaked the Midnight Entity for Episode 3 and the Fugitive Doctor for Episode 5. So the reason I'm giving this any of the time of day is because this person seems to have a proven track record. Now, this leak goes on to say that, because originally I thought, when I heard the sort of sentence female and familiar, I was like, okay, maybe it's the Fugitive Doctor, or maybe it's one of the other actresses that we'd already heard in leaks, like Ambika Mod. However, it was later clarified that female and familiar in this context is someone who's appeared in Doctor Who before, but specifically was at the BAFTAs and also didn't play the Doctor. So this basically breaks down to 6 candidates. You've got Saran Jones, who plays Idris in The Doctor's Wife, Joanna Page, who played Queen Elizabeth in There the Doctor, and also obviously Stacey most famously in Gavin and Stacey, Billie Piper, of course, who played Rose, Anna Maxwell Martin, who played Suki in The Long Game, Rose Ayling-Alice, who played Alice in The Well, and Nicola Coughlan, who played Joy in Joy to the World. So those are the 6 options that we have, and there's a couple of others that I think people have pointed out. Jessica Hines is technically another one as well. So yeah, we're down to about 6 or 7 candidates. However, the one that seems to have the most weight behind it currently would arguably be the most insane one, and that is Billie Piper. According to leaker Andrew, the 16th Doctor's identity will be quote-unquote explosive. They will be familiar and female. They've appeared in Doctor Who before playing a different role, and they appeared tonight at the BAFTAs. I don't know about you, but based on this information, it seems like the 16th Doctor is none other than Billie Piper. And I believe that the Andrew person in question did comment like a B on another thread somewhere, kind of as a little hint maybe towards this being the case. Now, it's important to state that we wouldn't know, how much this hypothetical 16th Doctor would be contracted for. It seems like they would just appear at the end of the regeneration. We don't know beyond that whether, the story would be continued or whether they've been contracted to do a full series. But I want to talk about the premise of Billie Piper as the 16th Doctor, because I have quite the range of opinions on this just as an idea in general. Again, whether it turns out to be accurate or not, I don't know, but a lot of people seem to be talking about it and coalescing around this idea, so I want to give my 2 cents. On the one hand, Billie Piper is a phenomenal actress even outside of her work in Doctor Who as Rose. You've got things like I Hate Susie, the recent Prince Andrew Netflix thing she was in. You've got Secret Diary of a Call Girl, of course. All these different roles that are fantastic. And she is a really, really good actress. And I have no doubt that she could pull off some of the Doctor's qualities. And I mean, I've seen her be a lot quirkier in recent roles, which would fit a Doctor persona. However, all of that is to say that while I think Billie Piper could pull it off. I don't think that this would be a good idea, and the reason I don't is twofold. On one level, it's another gimmick Doctor relatively soon after the 14th Doctor, who you guys will know if you watch this channel, I do like, and I do think they justified it. But I think having David Tennant return as a new Doctor to a new Doctor, only to then go to Billie Piper, a companion of the 10th Doctor, as another new Doctor, would feel like the ultimate sign of desperation, in my opinion, and I'm just being completely honest with that. If they were to make Billie Piper the 16th Doctor, it would be the ultimate kind of acknowledgement that we do not know what to do with this. We do not know how to get the casuals on board. And I mean, it's true that this probably would get the casual audiences on board. Rose Tyler is still probably one of the most popular companions with the general public ever, right up there with Sarah Jane Smith. I'm not even that big a fan of Rose, but objectively, I think if you were to ask the general public who are the Doctor Who companions they remember, it's probably going to be Rose, Sarah Jane, maybe Donna as well. But Rose is up there. And that whole romance with the David Tennant Doctor, and you know, that end scene in Doomsday, is still one of the most kind of remixed and recreated scenes in all of Doctor Who history. And I can imagine if this were to happen, social media and TikTok and news sites and YouTube videos would be going absolutely insane. You know, I can imagine the edits of Billie Piper as the 16th Doctor and, you know, kind of it being a continuation of that story and stuff like that. On one level, yes, I do think that that would have a major pull to the general public. But on the other hand, I just can't help but feel that it would be the ultimate sign of, please come and watch it. And it sucks because I actually think that season 2 specifically has been getting into a really good flow of actually like making some really good stories, and I think Ncuti Gatwa has really found his footing as the Doctor, in my opinion. And I cannot think of a bigger step backwards than to cast one of the most beloved companions as the next Doctor. I'm not necessarily against the concept of a Doctor taking on the face of a companion inherently. My argument is just that I don't think that this is the right time to do it. Is there a way that they could do it where it would work? Potentially, you know, if they handled it very carefully and they didn't make her too similar to Rose and they tied it in a similar way to how they tied in the 12th Doctor and Caecilius, which I've mentioned before, maybe it could work. Maybe. But I still just think it's like the ultimate gimmick to try and get the general public on board. And while I think that would work temporarily, I do think that that would dissolve as quickly as it came. I've said before, I love the 14th Doctor, I love David Tennant, and we did see a big boost in viewing figures when David Tennant came back. But it's no secret that as soon as that novelty wore off, the viewing figures went back to about where they were. Again, we can talk about why that is, whether that's justified or not, whatever, but it is just an objective fact. Like I've said before, I don't think the viewing figures are as bad as people make out that they are. However, I'd be lying if I said that Doctor Who is currently setting the general public on fire. Like, it just isn't. But I worry that if you were to do this, what happens when Billie Piper leaves? Do you know what I mean? What happens when she goes away and then everyone is expecting an old Doctor or an old companion to become the new Doctor, and then there's disappointment when that's not the case? I feel like in the long term, it would do more damage. At least with the 14th Doctor, there's a precedent for returning Doctors to come back to do an anniversary for some extended period of time, which is why I didn't mind it very much. But to have a Doctor whose identity is so closely tied to a previous era, and specifically the era that, and specifically a companion that started the whole revival, I just think that would be too big of a mountain to climb, and I think it would ultimately do more damage to the programme in the long term than it would help it in the short term. But I mean, it might not happen, and this might be completely bull, but I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on it, because I've seen it doing the rounds, and who knows at this point, but it's interesting, I'll give it that. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.